got the Texas Fan Better Podcast. Jim Bridge, Fifth Ward Crenshaw, you know the best out there. Keno from Diggity 713. To all my Texans Nation. If you feeling good, I want you to throw them H's up high. Yeah, like that. I see you. Let's swarm. Yeah, Houston, Texas, born and raised. Yeah, that's where I'm from. The best city in the state. Yeah, we stay turned up. There's excitement in the air for the Houston Texans. We swarming all year, causing havoc, we wrecking. Coming off that edge, we got 5-5-5-5-1. Team on the outside, locking down your number one. All about the swarm mentality. And the H standing on business is the way we operate. I rep that 7 like CJ, that 1 like Diggs, that 3 like Dale. H-Town, we doing it big, you know that 12 out here, and don't you never forget, better pick your poison, cause we got Joe in the midst. We rock that battle red, still blue, Liberty white, H-Town blue, drip galore, man, we so fresh, fire like the field. Shout out to the whole squad, chasing greatness, eyes on the prize, one goal, it's time to take it. Let's get it. Throw them H's up, throw them H's up, now you throw them H's up, throw them H's up, we throw them H's up, throw them H's up, let's all love for them Texans, cause them bulls about to perform. Throw them H's up, throw them H's up, now you throw them H's up, throw them H's up, we throw them H's up, throw them H's up, let's all love for them Texans, cause them bulls.
Welcome back to the Texas Fan Battle Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Matthew Briggs. As always, we got our team swarm. We got a special guest, but let me introduce my team to you. First off, the man that needs to be heard. We got Mr. Kenneth the Messenger. Kenneth, what's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. I hope everybody's doing good and doing well.
Your sound's not working.
All right.
While he gets that taken care of, let's go over to the man that's been my A1 since day one. We got Mr. Crenshaw himself.
What up? What's up, Josh?
It's like,
hey, guys, what's up?
all right. Okay, it might be on mine. And let me fix this real quick. All right. And then, guys, special guest, if you know him, if you listen to sports radio in Houston from past to present, you know this guy very well. We got Mr. Josh Ennis. How you doing, sir?
Guys, appreciate you. Hope you guys are doing well, and it's cool to be here. I always love talking with Houston folks.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
For some reason, I'm not hearing nothing.
Matt, you good?
Sorry about that. Josh, thanks for coming on. Sorry we had a little technical difficulties there for a
Brother,
second.
let me tell you, I know that life. During the COVIDs, we were doing a bunch of podcasts and stuff because that was all there was to do. And I couldn't figure this shit out to save my life. Like, I'd be having people get on, and I couldn't hear them, and they couldn't hear me. So, trust me, I've lived this life, man.
Yeah. Well, Josh, how's it been going, man? It's been a while since we heard you from the Texan side.
Good. Well, I mean, since I was last there, I lived there in 2019. I guess I left I'm wrong. I left in 2020. I got fired in 2019. I moved in 2021. In early 2021, I went to Nashville, and then I took another job in St. Louis, and that lasted like 15 months because the station was an old folks' home, so it didn't really fit my personality all that much. And then here we are, and I'm trying to find something else, and got to get the hell out of St. Louis.
Well, there's always a good jobs up here. I live in Chiefs country, so I'm up here in Kansas City. They're always having people looking for the radio up there, but I don't know if you can deal with these Chiefs fans. They're pretty.
I don't like those people at all, to tell you the truth. So, they're the most obnoxious. I don't know if you guys experienced this, and I know you had to have during the playoffs, dude. But like, they are like, it's so bizarre because they're so desperate for the world to love them. So like, you talk shit about them, right? And like the stuff with the refs, like anybody with eyes, like I don't believe that they're it's rigged. I don't think the league is rigged. But I think they get a shitload of calls, and I think those calls come in very big situations. We saw it in the Texans game twice in that playoff game. So they get calls. Like we saw it early in the Super Bowl. Like, I don't think it's rigged, but 2 plays into the Super Bowl, we're seeing an egregious pass interference call. So, like, the Chiefs people, though, they're so desperate for people to bow down and kiss their ass They don't understand that being the big dog means everyone else hates you. That's the way it works. We all want to be you. We all want to be the team that's in the Super Bowl every year. So of course we're gonna hate you. But they live in this weird Midwestern world where it's like they want people to love them, and that shit ain't gonna happen, dude. Like I hate them. Like, look, all good for Pat and all that shit, but like, I don't like these dudes, and I want them to lose every damn game, and I want their fans to lose. Keep in mind, these are the people celebrating some dude in a wolf costume robbing banks. That's like they're like I don't know if you guys watched that documentary, but they're like, we love this dude, we love Chief Wolf guy, and I'm like, fuck this guy. So I really hate the Chiefs. So how did you end up in Kansas City, and how are you like a Chief? How are you in Kansas City and Texans and all that?
Well, I was born and raised in Houston. My mom moved up here in '66. So I went to come and help take care of her.
Okay.
Then I met my wife, and then happy wife, happy life. So
Well,
I'm
dude,
kind of
Kansas City ain't a bad town. It's better than St. Louis. St. Louis is a shithole.
well. The fans make it rough. It's like around a lot of Cowboy fans times affinity. It's just like you know, I
Well,
get
it's
it.
even worse because they're Cowboys fans, but they've won shit in this millennium.
Exactly.
A
That's one.
lot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's where it was like, okay, I get it. But the thing, like, when I try to tell them, because they're like, oh, nobody cared about when the Patriots did it. Well, nobody cries. Like the Patriots fans didn't cry. Tom Brady didn't cry. He just sucked it up and went with it like he owned it.
well, that's the
So
thing. They enjoyed being the bad guy. That's the thing, man. Like the best heels. I don't know if you guys are wrestling guys, but like Ric Flair wasn't looking for your sympathy. Ric Flair knew he was the shit and cheated and did everything else. Chicken shit heel. Like you gotta embrace the fact that people hate you. You have to embrace that. The Chiefs fans want all that goes with being like this. They want to be a great team, but they don't want people to hate them. I think Astros fans were sort of like that to a degree too. Like everybody hated them because of the cheating, and they'd be like, "Why do you hate us? Who gives a shit if they hate you? You're the one winning, so embrace it." But the Chiefs fans are desperate for people to like acknowledge them in some way, and I'm like, just eat it up, man. Talk shit to people.
yeah, that's what I tell people when they bring up the whole trash can thing. Is look, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. You know what I mean? Like don't
Sure, fuck them.
don't play me in Monopoly because I'm gonna rob you blind, especially when I'm
Dude, I'm with you.
you know.
Like when people
Yeah.
come at like, dude, I've lived all over the place. I'm a bit of a vagabond. I get around, and like I'll see people that were talking shit about the Astros that rooted for like the Pirates, and I'm like, you're the Pirates. Like that kid that found the Paul Skeens card. They offered him lifetime Pirates tickets, and he was like, "No, go fuck yourself. I'm just gonna sell the card." Like the Astros didn't cheat and affect you. You lost 100 games. So like I'm all for that, but embrace it. Like people are gonna hate you, embrace it. That's what makes it fun. But these people in Kansas City are just thirsty for all this like adoration and ring kissing and all this. And it's like, bro, just stick with whatever the hell it is you do. Go win. Look, good for you. You won a lot. When I was a kid, I lived in Missouri some too. The Chiefs had historic Houston-like losses on a regular basis in the playoffs. 96, I think 98. They would win 13 games every year and then they would lose 9-7 in the playoffs. Or they had the '04, they played the Colts, didn't punt. Neither team punted, and they lost that after going 13-3 with a home playoff game. So these people have suffered. But now it's like they're living on high on the hog, and they don't want, and then, like it's like they want people to like be happy for them, and like, no, we're sports fans, we're not happy for you. We're miserable because our team blew a 24-point lead to your team a couple years ago in the playoffs, and our team saw a couple of bad calls go against us in the game this year that might have helped you win. So no, we're not rooting for you. Screw off.
Right. I completely agree. Well, speaking of that 24 to loss, let's talk about the Texans. Josh, a lot of people outside of the Texans nation, especially sports media, are claiming this is the worst offseason by any team. Period. Uh, that the Texans don't have a clue. What's your take on it?
Well, I think that's dumb. I mean, again, I'm not to cop out, but how could anybody really know that? I do think, and I don't know how true it is of what you believe and what stories you believe, but part of the story was you get rid of Laramie Tunsil because he's a quote unquote not a culture fit, right? They're trying to change the culture. Well, culture or not, you got to have someone protect the quarterback, and you basically just let your best offensive lineman go over culture or whatever. You got to find someone to protect the guy, and Cam Robinson ain't going to be some long term solution there either. So I don't think they've had a horrible offseason. I think they've had a fine offseason, and that could really be altered by the draft as well. And see what you do there. To me, their biggest priorities have to be you finally have a franchise quarterback that's not getting jerked off by 50 women or forcing jerking off upon him. Sorry, they didn't willfully do it. It doesn't sound like so forcing his jerk offedness on them. But you have a superstar quarterback that's a nice guy, a likable guy. You got a coach that the world loves. You got an owner, super hot owner lady that talks mad shit to everybody and dick swings like a motherfucker. So like that's fun. You like all the shit's coming together, but most importantly, you got the quarterback. So you're good to go. Protect that dude and get him weapons, right? I'm skeptical about whether or not they've done enough to protect their biggest asset and not be running for his life like he was last year. That would be the biggest thing. That's why, like, you look at the draft and every mock you see is, do they go offensive line or do they go playmaking weapon on, like, and the two you see a lot, you see offensive line or you see Ibuka, who I think's a beast. I base a lot of my opinions on who I gamble on during the season because I'm a degenerate. So Ibuka, I live in a state, or I live next to a state where you're allowed to make prop bets on college guys, and that dude's a monster every week. Like, I love the guy. He's got a history with CJ. So I dig that. But like, to your initial question, which was like people talking shit about the offseason, it had been a great offseason, and it could be a real disastrous one if it turns out that your Tunsil, just shipping Tunsil off and he ends up being a stud and you end up screwed. Like, those could be things that are big, but I don't think it's been terrible. I think that's an overstatement about that.
Yeah, and Keno brought up a good question last week with we had a little Kiki on the show. He also wanted a another deal coming up. He wanted another extension. So, but if you look at it, we got Will Anderson. We just paid Derek Stingley, which I think was a well needed pay, and then you got Will Anderson coming up, and you also got CJ Stroud. So, do you fit that into your game plan? I
No,
mean,
but
you kind of go ahead.
I think you have to. I think that there's a factor in all that. The most important thing is the quarterback, right? And making the quarterback happy. But now on the other side of that, look what the Bengals did this offseason. And people are super skeptical of the fact that they've spent all this money to make Joe Burrow happy at wide receiver. And then now you look at around, they go, well, who the hell's going to protect him and who's going to play defense? So I think they go into that with everything. And that's kind of why I think a lot of people are talking about offensive line being a huge factor in the draft, is because obviously you want to find someone who's going to protect the quarterback and you have to find him for a good deal. And that's obviously going to be a cheaper deal than going out and paying, a big time guy at that position too. So I think that factors into there as well. But yeah, I think you have to look at all of those things when you're going into this. You look to the future because you've got the quarterback, right? That's all that matters. If you got the quarterback, you're looking at 10 years, right? Like some teams, like if you're the Titans right now, they don't have the quarterback. So they're looking to see who their guy is going to be. Are they going to draft Cam Ward? Are they going to who knows what they're going to do? The pick. It sounds like they're going to draft Cam Ward, but then you start moving forward in the future. Look inside this division with another team in the division. You look at the Colts. They thought they had the quarterback, and maybe they still do, but do they? Like, he kind of sucked. Now, granted, situation wasn't great. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but he sucked. Like, the dude could throw 150 yards for a strike, can't complete a 10-yard pass to anybody. So, but then to back to the Texans, they're in a good spot with that because you've got the dude. That's your number one focus. And then everything kind of operates and kind of shifts around what you're going to do at that position. So, and what you're going to do around him. The biggest question I have is, do you view protecting him as your biggest priority, which I think it needs to be because the guy got sacked 55 times or whatever it was last year running for his life? Or do you look at those kind of weapons? The good news is either one of those guys you're going to take in the draft are going to be affordable for you, and they're going to be huge assets to you because of the need that you have at those positions. So, but at least you don't need quarterback, man. Like, we live that life. I mean, like, I like Matt Schaub, and when I moved there, Matt Schaub was quarterback, and I think a lot of people kind of, it's easy to kind of retroactively kind of dump on Schaub, and people did it in the moment too. But like, Schaub actually was good. But like, we didn't have that dude, and then there was like 3 or 4 years of junk, and then here comes Deshaun, hero, legend, and then that all falls apart. So you got the dude. Like, it's wild to think that the Texans, and I know I'm speaking kind of broad here, but like, you're looking at the Texans and you've got the coach. I think we all agree that D'Amico's pretty legit. I like him. He's a likable guy. It's infectious. And I mean, you could question some shit they did last year, but any team's going to get questioned. I give him an out after the first year. He was great. So you make some mistakes, shit happens, right? So you do that. You got the ownership. Talk about a 180. Dude, 5 years ago, if you would have told people that the city loves Cal McNair and just the McNair family in general 5 fucking years ago, bro, the dude was a goober and they hated his dad, even though his dad was dying. And then you had like, he's kind of a doofus and the ownership is terrible and the team looks like a clusterfuck. The Texans are perfect right now in terms of just likability at coach, ownership, quarterback. They got the three most important factors there. So to me, to back to the questions like draft and who you do, like they're kind of in a good spot because I don't believe they're in a position where it's like, oh my God, like there's a make or break type of thing for the organization because they have the quarterback. But I don't know, man. It's just good to root for the Texans right now, isn't it? Because you guys lived that life when it wasn't. You lived that life when it was fucking, revolving door of quarterback and Bill O'Brien and Cully and Lovey and like it's just good to be in this spot. Not desperate with the number one pick and are you taking Cam Ward or Shador? It's are you going Egbuka or are you going offensive line? Like I like that. Like at least we got that going for us, which is nice right now.
Well, and also, I mean, you can take it one step further. We also remember when, you know, Bud Adams, or I hope he's getting skull fucked by a grub worm, when he moved the team, and then 2 years later they go to the Super Bowl. I mean that kind of cuts you deep as a fan. Like we that could have been us, but yeah, totally agree with you. Crenshaw, you got any questions for Josh about the Texans?
Um, yeah. So like to you, Laramie Tunsil, like just for your eyes on the outside looking in, what was his biggest flaws to you, and what he need to work on in Washington to succeed?
Well, the thing is, I'm not some guy that's going to tell you that I can break down what an offensive lineman does because I didn't play the position. And this is kind of never what I've done. And I think it would be disingenuous for me to sit there and try to break down like the technique or anything of the offensive lineman because I didn't do it. But I can tell you this, and I can ask you this. I would ask you because you would know more than I would, honest to God, on this. Do you guys believe the stuff that was out there about like culture and all that shit with the team? Like that's what I read from afar, sitting here in St. Louis. And honestly, I'm not locked into it every day like you guys are. So you guys know a lot more than I do. Do you believe that it was performance, or do you believe that there's something to this D'Amico trying to build a culture thing?
I I think it's a little bit of both and contract as well. I think we'll know more as the season goes on because someone's gonna spill the beans, someone's gonna, want to break that story. But I mean, he was a good guy. He just was in his own ass. He was a me person. He didn't give a fuck about everybody else on the offensive line. Okay, well let me ask you a college question because I know you're an
Sure.
LSU fan, correct?
Yep.
All right. So what? Tell me, how can I get excited by Jason Taylor's son? Because he will be a great addition to this team. How can I get excited about him?
Dude, I like him a lot. You're talking about Mason Taylor?
Yes, sir. Mason Taylor.
Mason
Yes, sir.
Taylor is a sure-handed type of guy. When I watch him, like if you were looking for a security blanket guy, and I'm not talking about just with Jaden Daniels, who's a special kind of talent, Heisman Trophy, NFC Championship game, first year in the league. Like that dude's special, and he made a lot of people look good, and he made a lot of the team look good 2 years ago when they had no running game. He was the running game, but Mason Taylor was a go-to for him. And this year was one of those weird years for LSU where like they started the year with a guy named Kyron Lacey who was supposed to be their next big LSU receiver. It didn't really work out that way with that. So anytime they needed to make a play, it wasn't like they had a Justin Jefferson to go to. It's not like they had like I mean, look at all these dudes in the league. You can make, by the way, this is something I do every weekend because I'm a degenerate. You can build a parlay with LSU wide receivers that are in the league, and it will hit every week because these dudes are fucking monsters. Last year, they didn't have that guy. Go back and watch LSU. They didn't have him. So anytime they needed a play, anytime they needed big yards, anytime they needed to convert on a third down, Mason Taylor was that dude. Like I love watching that dude play, and that's why they wanted him back. Like you talk to LSU fans, it's like we want that dude to be back because he was a security blanket for the quarterback. So I love that dude. I'm a big fan of Mason Taylor. By the way, 2 years ago, or was it 2 or 3 years ago, he had the big catch against Alabama in overtime. Again, anytime you're LSU, you beat Alabama, it's a huge fucking deal. Jaden Daniels to Mason Taylor, 2 point conversion, win in overtime. Guy's got good pedigree. I think that helps. I think if you come from that kind of lineage, you know what the league is like, and you have that in you. Love him. There's no reason to not be excited about that dude. Dude can play, man. I like him.
Yeah, yeah, I think he'll be great, and then we get to see his Annie Joy, at the games.
Hey, and you know what? If you've got a job for her, she'll probably fuck you.
Yeah, right.
So you got that going for you, which is nice. I don't know what you have to offer her, but if it's anything of substance,
Yo.
she will fuck you. And hey, nothing. I'm not judging. If
It's the
somebody
truth,
wanted to
though.
fuck me and it meant I got a job, I'd do it too. But nobody wants to fuck me.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Hey,
I'm
so
willing to do it for a job if anybody's offering.
all right. Hey, so Josh, you pretty much work for all the stations out down here in Houston.
Yep.
What was the best station you worked at, and what's your most fondest memory at the station?
610 is the best station I ever worked at because 610 was well run. There was a lot of misconceptions about 610, okay? 610, people just kind of treat them like, oh, they have the Texans, so they're homers. And some of that I get. Like Mark Vandermeer was on the morning show, and he's one of my really good friends. But Mark was the play-by-play guy, right? So of course he's not gonna say a bunch of shit. So there's like this idea that it's homer radio. Dude, let me tell you this. At 610, they never bitched. The Texans never bitched about anything I said or anything. When I went to 790, and when I was at 610 and 790, the Rockets bitched about everything. Now I don't know if they do that anymore because it's no longer like Tad Brown is no longer there. He was the president, and obviously Daryl isn't there anymore. But they had rabbit ears, dude. Like these dudes, anytime you'd say anything about the Rockets, I'd get admonished. Like I think I called, and look, I've said some dumb shit in my life. Okay, so I've done dumb shit and said dumb shit and got myself in trouble. I talked about this on the pod that I was doing the other day. Like was making fun of this dude in Chicago who just lost his 30-year job because he was fighting with some dude on the internet over a fish. The guy was fighting about a fish he caught, and he threatened the guy, and they fired him. I'm like, look, I've done some dumb shit, and I get that. Like, I basically lost my job at 790 because I couldn't stop talking shit about the Rockets. So, like, I'm a fucking idiot too. Like, I was making good money to be on 790, and I couldn't stop talking shit because I hated them and they hated me. But at 790, like everything, if the Rockets were pissed, I was always in trouble, right? And at 610, I would get in trouble over the Rockets too. The Rockets were the biggest whiners. Astros never really whined from what I understand, but they were also winning the fucking World Series when I worked at 790, so there was nothing really to bitch about. The Texans never really bitched. The best memories I had there were honestly working at 610. As a young dude, I got there when I was 23, came from Baton Rouge, and it was a good vibe, and we had good young people. My boss was great. His boss was great. We hired good people. Actually, some of my best memories were hanging out with ND Kalu. He and I were really good buddies, and they sent us to Vegas for a fight once. It was Pacquiao versus like Sugar Shane Mosley or something. And it's one of those situations where like the network Showtime will pay to just have radio people come out and do shows and like interview random boxing guests. Like, hey, here's the fight doctor, Ferdy Pacheco. You have to talk with him for 5 minutes and we'll put you up at the MGM Grand. PDs usually hate that because the people listening don't give a shit. Like if you're in Houston, you don't give a shit that some guy's in Vegas at a fight, you know. But we loved it because we got a free trip to Vegas. So me and ND went, and I'm like 24 years old, and ND's kind of showing me the ropes. We go to Vegas. We go to Tao, which is like this big club in Vegas, like where the Kardashians and shit go. And we meet up with it's me, ND, Jamie Sharper, who is one of ND's really good friends. I'm doofus white dude wearing like a blazer and shit, looking like a dumbass. And they bring me down into this club and we're like drinking like dark liquors. And I'm a pussy. Like dark liquors aren't for me. I'm a clear, dainty, clear liquor. I'm vodkas, tequilas. They're pouring like Crown down my throat. They're paying for everything. I'm like, I'm living the fucking dream, man. And a lot of my best experiences in Houston were the first time I was there. And that was from 2000, the end of 2009 to the end of 2013, and that was fun. It was just the best time. Then I came back in 790. We did a lot of good shit, but it wasn't as much fun because the place wasn't fun. And then honestly, I spent a little bit of time at 97.5 during COVID, and that's where I really became friends with AJ. and that is AJ Hoffman, who's now in San Antonio. And AJ's now become one of my really good friends. We had fun, and since we had no rules because it was COVID, we would just get hammered on the air every Friday and drink nasty alcohol and shit. So like, I had a great time. All my best memories of doing radio shit were all in Houston because Houston's a great town, and just I love doing it. I just love doing radio. There was a good time. So, but 610 was the best station that I worked at. It's kind of, it is what it is now. Most of these stations are what they are now. It's not as exciting kind of as it used to be, and podcasts have started to really, I say start, I mean podcasts are where people are getting their shit. Like, look at your boy Landry Locker. That dude was working at 610, and I don't know if he got fired or what. Like, I don't know all the details, but homeboy's now, got 15,000, 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, and people are paying to watch him, so dude's out there killing it. But like, some dude, when I was at 610, we went to the Super Bowl for the first time in 2010. And like, John Lopez took my ass under his wing. We were in Miami. And he's like, dude, I'm going to take you over to Coyote. I'm like, sure. So we're down like Little Havana, all this shit, eating like all like plantains and shit that I'll never eat. But he's like, we're going to try all this shit. And then he took me to this strip club called Tootsie's in Miami. It's kind of halfway between Lauderdale and Miami. This is like a Walmart super center of strip clubs, like 3 levels, and like it was wild. But like, we just had good times, man. Like, and I think I like that the most because I was a young dude, and I had dudes that I could kind of look up to as like kind of father figure types in a way that kind of like showed me the ropes. Barry Warner was a guy like that showed me the ropes. I mean, and I appreciate them for that. And one of my great regrets ever, I guess, is actually just leaving Houston. Maybe not the first time because I had a chance to go work in Philly, and but like, Houston's a great place, and I enjoyed my time there, and I lived there for like 10 years, longer than I've ever lived anywhere else. So I enjoyed it.
Okay. Hey, so I'm pretty sure you talked about this hundreds and hundreds of times, but if you care to share, let us know what really went down on that famous day. And I think I was in Vegas. Were you in Set Pain, correct?
Oh no, that was in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Um,
Okay, Minneapolis. Yes. Okay.
oh, it's a look. I'll give you all the details on that. So when I got back to Houston, I was doing afternoons. They hired me to do afternoons on 790, and
And
then
then
they
they,
moved me to mornings when Lance had been doing mornings, and they moved, and Lance left to go to 97.5, and they moved me to mornings. And when they moved me to mornings, I just started talking a lot of shit about Mike and Seth. Full disclosure, they're two of my favorite people. Like, Mike is one of my best friends in the world, and I think Seth is actually like the best sports radio guy that's in town. I think he and Sean Salisbury are both very, like, just interesting guys. But at the time, Seth was like, and he would tell you this, Seth was just enraged all the time, like really high strung for whatever reason. So I would just say dumb shit about them and make fun of them all the time. And I shouldn't have, because Mike was one of my best friends, but I was a fucking lunatic, and they're paying me all this money to try to get ratings, and I'm like, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm a dipshit. So we're at the Super Bowl. It's in Minneapolis. They have a media party like on a Tuesday is usually when they have their media parties. And so we're at the Mall of Americas where the media party's happening, and this is where the Radio Row is happening too. But media party, it's you drink some free booze, eat some free food. And I kind of bumped into Mike and Seth after I'd been talking a bunch of shit about them. And all I did was acted like there was nothing new happening. I said, "Hey guys, what's up?" Or I might have even avoided them. I don't know if I avoided them. I just don't know if I talked to them. And that, I think, really pissed Seth off too. So the next day, I did a bit that I normally do at Radio Row, where I send somebody or I myself go around and with a microphone and just talk to randos. Because Radio Row is kind of a boring thing. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it doesn't really do anything for anybody, and it's mostly just talking to dipshits trying to sell books. So I would send my guy Jim Mudd around, and he would go interview people. And he walked over to 610 and just like put a mic in their face for a second, and their boss shoot him off. They said, "Get lost." Okay, whatever. So I said, "All right, Jim, come back." Jim's on his way back, and Seth just fucking loses his mind. And he's like, Jim Mudd, he starts calling Jim fat and shit, I think is what happened. I mean, he's like, "Jim, you really let yourself go," and blah, blah, blah. But then he steps up and yells at me. I don't know how far away we are from each other in the room. I mean, there's a bunch of radio stations in the middle of a mall. We're in the food court at the fucking Mall of America. So we're sitting there, and he stands up. Now, this is still early in the morning. There's not a ton of radio shows there. It's middle of the week, early morning. So there's, there's some, but not a ton like it is at, 5 in the afternoon or whatever. So he stands up and he yells across the room that, Josh won't come say anything to my face because he's a bitch. And while that's probably true, I was like, listen, this is what's going on in my mind. I'm live on the air on 790. He's live on the air on 610. And this is what's going through my mind as he yells, Josh's a bitch and won't say this to my face. I'm thinking, if I go over there, this dude may kill me, but if I don't go over there, I'm a bitch for the rest of my days. So what's the bigger thing? Being a bitch after I've talked all this shit about these guys, or getting my ass kicked? And I'm like, I'll take the chance and getting my ass kicked. So I go over there. Like, people don't understand this. Seth's a big dude. Like, he's smaller now. Like, he's like really kind of a leaner dude now. But like, he was still a relatively big. He's a big dude. He's an offensive lineman, right? So defensive lineman. Sorry. So like, he's a big dude. So I'm over there and I'm in his face. He's just going off on me, and I'm like, I don't have a microphone. I only have my phone. Right? It sounds like shit. He's got a mic. I don't. I've got a phone. And like, I'm nervous because I'm like, he might kick the shit out of me. Like, he might just fucking haul off and deck me. And I wouldn't blame him. Look at me. I'm a putz and I'm talking shit. And like, I don't blame him. So I'm standing there and I'm kind of shaking because adrenaline, adrenaline is the whole world staring at you. Another radio station has already started going live on their YouTube, watching me about to get my ass handed to me. So people across the country are watching this shit, dude. And I'm like adrenaline. I'm like shaking. Like, it's not like I'm nervous mixed with adrenaline. And I remember Landry Locker saying something about how like I was shaking and I was a bitch. You'd be shaking too if this entire mall was watching you about to get your face knocked off by this guy. And I don't remember how it ever came to an end. All I know is that right after it ended, a radio station in Boston grabs us. We're being interviewed by a radio station in Boston. I'm like, I got a job to do, but I got Jim Mudd and Jilly, my wife, over there doing the show. I'm being interviewed in Boston. So is Seth. And then people are asking me to do interviews on television in Minneapolis. So I'm like cutting wrestling promos on this dude. I'm like all jacked up, and they're like, "So what happened here?" And I'm like, "Well, this bitch didn't want to fight me." And like they're bleeping me out on TV and shit. I'm like I'm fucking Ric Flair or something. And then a bunch of radio stations wanted to have me on, but my boss wouldn't let me do it. But and then I don't know if I ever talked to Seth again after that until first of all, Mike and I became friends again, and it took a while because like he and I met up again. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Like I'm a fucking nutcase. I was just trying to do radio shit. Now me and Mike talk all the time. And then Seth came on my podcast during COVID, I think, and we're all good there. Like they kind of got it, but like it was, dude, it was a big deal. Like it was the biggest story of Radio Row that day. Wasn't my intention. Like people think that I was out there trying to start some shit. I wasn't trying to start a fight with some 6 foot whatever defensive lineman from a football team. I was just doing dumb shit, trying to get a rise and trying to get people to listen. And then dude wanted to beat the shit out of me. And yeah, he claims he was never going to hit me. When I talked with him, he's like, I wasn't going to actually hit you. I'm like, nobody knew that at the time. I didn't know that when I walked over. I could have died, but I didn't. And, it is what it is. But it was a huge moment. And it's like people still talk with me about that sometimes because it was the perfect storm. Because at Radio Row on like Tuesday and Wednesday, those are kind of dead days. Thursday and Friday, it picks up. So, I mean, it just became a huge story. We're all over Howard Stern's talking about it on his show. I'm like, holy shit, this is bizarre. And it was. And then, of course, they claim the radio station got kicked out because of that. That's not true. But that just sounded good. And, shit went down, man. Then we had one dude that wanted to like fight me in the lobby of the hotel after. I mean, like shit, like, dude, shit was wild, Wild West, and that was what, 6, 7 years ago now. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, John McClane's facial expression through the whole video was pretty priceless.
People love that. John was just so pissed about it. And I like John. But the thing is, like, I liked making fun of John too, because John has this really self-important quality about him where like there was one time, one of my favorite John McClane things, he probably wouldn't remember this or even claim it or whatever, but when I first got there, John would always come in talking about movies because like he might have had like an appearance in like an Adam Sandler movie or something, or knew the people doing it. So he always had like insider knowledge. And Black Swan was a movie that was out. and he comes in and he would just sit down like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever it was, and he'd come do his hit and talk about Black Swan, and he's like, "Hey, you see the scene when she's eating a pussy?" I'm like, "What the fuck?" He's like, he just say the most bizarre shit, you know. Uh, but I like John. John's a good guy, and I have nothing against him. But I would just like I would kind of bust his balls. Dude, I was fucking nuts. That when I got back from Philly, because all Philly was shit talking. So then I got back to Houston, and I was like, I guess that's what I need to do here is shit talk. In hindsight, there's a lot of shit I probably shouldn't have done. It was probably stupid, but I did it because I didn't. I just was like, this is how I should do this. And whatever. Sometimes you fuck up and do dumb shit, and it kind of comes back to get you. And it did there, I guess. But I
Okay.
didn't die. So there's that.
All right. This is my last one. Then I'm gonna let the other guys go. Do you let Luther listen to Sexy Red since you're in St. Louis?
Well, okay, so Luther would like Sexy Red, but Luther is dead. That said,
Oh shit!
it's okay. It's St. Louis killed my dog, actually. He got here and was like, "Why the fuck did you move me here?" And he said, "There's nothing to live for." But no, Luther would like Sexy Red, but Luther got sick about, I don't know, about 7, 8 months ago. But we do
Oh,
have a new dog, and his name is Ross. And I think that Ross would enjoy Sexy. I enjoy Sexy Red. Isn't who's the other one that's from St. Louis? SZA? No, SZA's from St. Louis, right?
I
Um,
think she is. I think she is.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Who's
she is.
yeah? So
Yeah.
who's the one that like wears the Blues jerseys and stuff? Is that SZA? I like SZA too. SZA was in the movie with Kiki Palmer, the one that I went to see a couple weeks ago. Wasn't as good. It was kind of like Lady Friday, and everything that was funny in it was in the
Yeah. It was
trailer.
okay.
But I
Mm,
like SZA. I think SZA's hot as shit too. So I like SZA.
yeah.
all right, Kendall, you got a question?
Yes, sir. Quick question. I'm gonna tap over to Boston because I heard you said something about Pacquiao. I have a quick question for you. How do you feel about Canelo versus Crawford? Do you think they should fight, or do you think is really Crawford is not in his weight class and jumping up weight divisions is not smart at all for Crawford? How do you feel about that fight?
I'll be real with you. I don't know a fucking thing. That's not one
Okay,
of the. That's just one of those things I don't. That's out of my jurisdiction, man. Like I don't. I don't know a ton about. My wife has me watch WWE, so that's
okay.
about the extent. Do you watch WWE?
Nah, not at
No,
all.
you're an adult, so you don't. But my wife is a child and makes me watch
Yeah.
rest. Only I only have to watch the pay per views though. So
Okay.
like but I don't have to watch Raw every Monday like my wife does. So
Okay.
Well, well,
Well, I got a Texans question for you.
real
sure.
quick, you just cut me deep, Josh, because I watch the pay per views myself too.
Yeah, well, and me and my we went to SummerSlam when we were in Nashville, and that was fun. And we've been to a couple pay-per-views. My wife, I don't know why she likes wrestling. It's like my grandma. My grandma used to love wrestling, and that's why I used to watch it because my grandma was obsessed with this shit, you know. And that's how I think. I don't know. Did everybody's grandma watch wrestling? Was that like a worldwide grandma phenomenon? I don't know, or if it was just my grandma, but she loved wrestling, dude. So but yeah, like I wish I knew more about like, MMA and shit and boxing because like I went to like I used to really when I was younger, dude, and like Mike Tyson was fighting, my dad would buy me all the pay-per-views. And I remember I was 10 years old and it was Tyson's comeback fight against McNeely, right? And like fuck yes, and he bought the pay-per-view and the fight lasted like 30 seconds like most Tyson fights did, he'd either bite somebody or, kick someone's ass, But yeah, anyway, what was the Texans question?
Yeah. So, who do you? I heard you speaking about Imuka. Um, what position do you think is important for us to pick at 25? Do you think it's a receiver, or do you think it's a tackle
I
or a
think either
guard?
one of them is good. Look, either one of them benefits the quarterback, and the quarterback's the most important spot you got. I'd like them to protect. I think if you've got a good quarterback can make a lot of receivers that aren't necessarily like studs, can make them good. But on the other hand, like we brought up Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was like, I need T. Higgins, and I need my dudes, right? So it's I'm torn on that, right? Like, but you got Ibuka and they've got history together. And I think that dude is sure-handed. He's just a baller, right? Like you'd be fine with either one of them. I think part of the reason why you'd entertain the idea of offensive line too is not just because of this year. It's because it's not like Cam Robinson's playing for you for 100 years, right? And you've already let your left tackle go, right? Your long-term solution there, or the guy that's been there. So to me, I think you're fine with either one of them. Granted, this is kind of a cop out, but you don't know who's going to be there at 25 either, who's going to take who. So, but like, dude, I think my head says that offensive line is probably the better move to protect the quarterback, but I love Ibuka just because I'm a degenerate gambler and I bet on the dude all the time and he's a fucking monster. But like, I love that dude. So I think he'd be good. But like, it wouldn't shock me. And Justin Watson ain't gonna have 1,000-yard season or anything like that. But like, Watson would have 2 or 3 catches a game for the Chiefs, catching passes from Mahomes. If you've got a dude that can make people better at quarterback, you can kind of survive without having to have 5 great receivers, right? I mean, look, you've got Nico. Obviously you're missing the second piece there too, which is the reason why you'd entertain this. Really, I mean, I know that they went out and Christian Kirk they went and they got some playmakers, but like to me, the good quarterback can make up for deficiencies at wide receiver. Right? It's good to have them, but you can make up for it. You got to keep the dude upright. So head says offensive line, but my degenerate gambler inside of me and just my desire to take over 55.5 receiving yards for Ibuka every week. Like, I love that dude. And I don't think you'd be bad in either spot, but you got to be able to get the ball to Ibuka. And how do you do that is you got to stay upright. So I think you're fine either way. But again, offensive line's probably the smart move, but you know, but then again, you know what's interesting about this shit too, guys, and you know this. Every year there's 1,000 can't miss receivers and 1,000 can't miss offensive linemen, and some are going to be great and some are going to suck, right? So like, especially with the way football is played now in college, there's a billion dudes on every roster in college that are going to go out and just look like studs, right? Because that's the way the game's played now. It's spread out and everybody's getting 5, 6, 7, 8 catches a game. So every year there's going to be a chance. Are either one of these players going to be can't miss guys? Like, is there going to be another Ibuka next year? You know, probably. You know, I mean, that's just the way the game is. So, but fuck, I would love watching CJ throw into that dude though, especially with Nico. Like, they'd be dynamic. They would, but is he going to stay upright? I don't know.
And if Christian Kirk can stay healthy, I mean, you got 3 solid receivers that
Totally.
could
Kirk's
stay
again,
healthy.
degenerate gambler. Kirk is another good guy to bet on. I like to bet on Kirk. Everything I base, like some people base all their shit on like Madden. They're like, I play with this guy on Madden. I just gamble on shit. It's probably why I'm broke all the time. I'm not good at it. So maybe that's the problem. I wish I were better at the shit. I gamble a lot and I suck at it. So that's problematic, is actually what that is.
Pat, you got any questions for Josh?
Yeah, I got one, man. Since we had brought up wrestling, I'm definitely a wrestling fan. I come from the Attitude Era. You know,
Totally.
Mankind, D Generation X, The Rock, that era. So I wanted to ask you, Josh, do you have I guess you say, do you have a top 5 favorite
Well,
wrestlers
let's
of all time?
see. First of all, I'm NWO for life. So
That's what
when
I'm
I
talking about.
was so my biggest era that I watched wrestling was like the Nitro, the Wars era, right? And I was
Yep.
all about WCW and I was all about Hollywood Hogan and Hall and Nash. Like that was my squad. That's the guys I
Gotcha.
rolled with. So like to me, a lot of the Attitude Era shit, like I watched it, but now I watch it more like on the WWE network. Like I'll go back and watch documentaries, and I'm
Right.
like, holy shit, this shit got wild. Why was I watching WCW? I'm over here watching these dudes like doing all the dumb shit they're doing on WCW at the end, while you got Stacy Keebler like bending over for everybody and people having sex on the ring. I'm like, shit, what was I doing?
Right.
But like I like dudes like Shawn Michaels is one of my dudes, HBK. Big I like Mankind. So when I was at 6'10, Mankind came up to the studio, Mick Foley did, and we
Oh
bought a
wow.
bunch of socks and drew Mr. Sockos on him to sign for us. We got pictures with him. He's a hell of a nice guy too. He's just a cool dude. A lot of these old school wrestlers are like really cool dudes. And I listen to a lot of I say a lot of wrestling podcasts. I listen to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, and now it's just kind of the same fucking stories all the time, but that's like my wrestling podcast that I listen to. But Hogan, I am a big Hogan. I like HBK. I like Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Ooh.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I sat ringside. The only time I ever sat ringside was at a house show in Baton Rouge when I was a kid, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan's right out in front of me with the 2x4. I like Hacksaw. I like The Rock. There's nobody, and honestly, like, dude, these lady wrestlers now kick ass, and not just because
They
they're
do.
hot, but like
They
I
do.
like Bianca Belair. She's hot.
Yep.
I like what's the blonde chick? Not who am I
Liv
thinking of?
Morgan.
Chili.
Liv Morgan.
Liv more.
Yep.
Yes, big Liv Morgan guy
Yes.
here. Um, so I like a lot of the lady wrestlers, you know. Do you guys there's also a good little documentary series with Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. He now runs NWA. He owns NWA wrestling. And there's a cool documentary show that I watched about him as well doing that. But um yeah, so those are the wrestlers that I dug. But when I was a kid, we used to like we didn't get the pay-per-views, so you'd wait till they were on tape, and my grandma, we'd all go to the Blockbuster. So you'd
Hmm.
rent like, here's SummerSlam 92, you know.
Hmm.
I'm also a big American Badass Undertaker guy. I didn't
Very
like the
underrated.
original Undertaker. Like you really think about it, it's a stupid concept. It's like it's stupid. But one time we were in Dallas after I got fired in Houston, and we kind of made the rounds just because I was getting paid to do nothing. So we went to a couple wrestling shows. There was a San Antonio show and then a one in Dallas. And this dude sitting next to us was like, "Have you guys ever seen the Undertaker's entrance?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Don't go get beer because it kicks ass." So I'm like, "Okay." And like the Undertaker comes out, it's fucking intense. Like it is fucking cool when the Undertaker comes out. So yeah, those were. You know who else I like? Fucking Arn Anderson. So at I want to say it was the Raw 20th anniversary that was in Houston. Me and my old boss went, and Jim Mudd, who's a big wrestling guy, we went, and fucking Arn Anderson came out, and I'm like, fucking Arn Anderson. Like I just like these old dudes that don't look like they should be able to kick anybody's ass. You know, like when I watch wrestling, this is a weird pet peeve of mine, but like I need it to be a believe. I know it's fake, but I need believable matchups. So like I can't have some like dude that's like three. There used to be this guy Braun Strowman. And they put Braun Strowman in the
Hmm.
ring with all these dudes, and I'm like, this dude should kick everyone's ass. There's literally no reason why anyone should be able to beat this hulk of a man, but he would still lose to people. And I'm like, well, this is stupid. This little guy can't beat this guy. This is stupid. And I'm probably looking way too deep into that, like a dipshit now. But I'd get angry. I'd be like, I know it's fake. I know it's all bullshit. But like, I need believable wrestling matches here. And like, there's no way anybody should beat Braun fucking Strowman, who was just like, I love that dude. I was like, this dude could kick everybody's ass, but then he didn't kick everybody's ass. And it was upsetting to me. It hurt me. It cut me deep. My mom loves wrestling. She'll talk with when my stepdad was alive, I would go have dinners with them, and all we would do is talk about wrestling. And my stepdad would talk about all the hot lady wrestlers, and my mom would talk about like Jelly. Who's mom? Who was mom's? Oh, Drew. Oh, she loved Drew McIntyre. Still loves Drew McIntyre. And I met him twice at the radio station in Nashville. He's a hell of a cool guy too, just a really cool, chill dude. But as a bad guy, he really kicks ass. I like Drew McIntyre. Now we're just doing all sorts of nerd shit now.
Oh
Anything
yeah.
else?
Oh no, that was it, man. Nah, that was it. I wanted to hear my boy top five list. That's a nice list, though. That's a nice list for sure.
Well, what's
Cause
your
I
okay? Let me ask you, what is your top five?
all right, my top five. Cause see, I'm kind of like you. During the Nitro Raw era, I would switch back and forth. You know, I go back and forth, switch channels. So it's gonna consist of both. I got The Rock, Stone Cold,
Yep.
Sting, Goldberg, and Jesus Christ, probably Kevin Nash.
See, so you like some of the big dudes,
Yep, yep,
kind of the
yep.
big. My grandma loved Goldberg too. That was her favorite wrestler. So my grandma Edna, she lived in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and she waited at a J.C. Penney for 3 hours in Poplar Bluff to meet Goldberg. So she waits and she gives Goldberg a hug, and she always loved to talk to the wrestlers about how they were crooked. She goes, "Don't you go turning dirty." That's all she. So that's why she hated Ted. She actually she loved Ted DiBiase. That was like her OG favorite wrestler was the $1 million man Ted DiBiase. She couldn't say his name right. She called him Ted DiBiase. She couldn't get his name right, but she loved Ted DiBiase and she loved Goldberg. And like I never got into Goldberg, but I think it was because I was big in the NWO. And I like the
Right.
OG NWO, like Scott Hall when he wasn't blitzed off his ass,
Mhm.
and Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hollywood Hogan. Then when they started putting like everybody in the
Everybody,
NWO, it's like I'm tired. I don't need. Then there was the Red NWO, dude. I loved Rodman in the NWO. I loved Rodzilla. Like when they had
Karl Malone
like
and
Malone, I was like, whatever. But when you give me like, I loved Rodman. Like Rodman was great in it. Then you got Tyson over in the WE, and he was awesome when he was doing that shit. So, and I forgot about Stone Cold, but Stone Cold's a beast too. And I just like Stone Cold. Like I like listening to his podcast and him tell stories with people too. I love wrestling stories from old school guys. Like the dudes that do it
Mhm.
now, like I'm not saying that they don't put in effort or that they obviously do and they're totally skilled. But like these dudes would drive like 8 hours to make $50. You know, like I'm driving from Memphis to St. Louis to wrestle and make $20. And then I'm having to ride with 8 dudes in a car to go to the next city. Like these dudes, like it wasn't glamorous, right? Like the
Mhm.
Jake the Snakes and these kind of guys that lived that life back in the early days of this shit. Whereas these guys now, like they got it made in the shade relative to those guys. So those are the guys I really kind of admire because like they had to do some fucked up shit and get their asses kicked, and ain't nobody was
Mhm.
protecting them or anything, man. Like they didn't have like now these guys probably well insured and everything. These dudes are out there wrestling in high school gymnasiums in front of 8 people making $15. You know, they totally they lived it, man.
well, before I ask my last question, I gotta give my top five. I have the Miz, the
Oh, get the
Undertaker.
fuck out of here. The
Come on, man,
Miz.
the
The
Miz is the
Miz.
greatest heel
And
of
okay, my
all
wife
time.
just looked at me like I'm an asshole because I said that. But the Miz is a guy that
The
like. Here's the
greatest
thing:
heel, the greatest heel of all time.
you can't be a top 5 wrestler if your ass is the dude they send out to get beaten by the rappers and shit when they come in. Like when Bad Bunny comes in and kicks the shit out of
Hey,
you, you can't
he's
be a top 5 wrestler. That
he,
does not work that way. Like you, like no, fuck that. Like he's great, but top 5. Your
look,
list is
hey,
null
look,
and void.
2-time all champion, 2-time Grand Slam. That's all I gotta say. 2-time, only person to do it. So, but me and Chris.
Hold on, hold
Yeah,
on. Let me say. I mean, since we're doing top five, I used to watch wrestling, so I'm gonna throw in my top five. I'm gonna be all over the place on my top five. I'm gonna go RVD. I'm gonna
Ooh.
I'm gonna go Sabu. I'm gonna
Damn.
go. Yeah, I know, right?
ECW.
I'm gonna go to Rock. I'm gonna go to Undertaker just cause he's from H Town. And then my last one, I'm gonna go Booker T.
Another H
Got it.
Town guy.
Oh
Booker
yeah,
T's
yeah,
from
my
what I've been
book.
told, is a hella nice guy too. I never met him, but Jim, my old producer, back when Booker T had he had like a wrestling school that was in the mall down near Galveston. And like Jim brought his kids out there, and like Booker T taught him how to run the ropes and shit. So Booker T just seems like the most badass dude, just a good dude. And so I've always liked him too. But like, I still can't get over the idea of the Miz being a top 5 wrestler of all time.
It's just
I'm
mine.
struggling with that.
It's just mine.
I'm trying to cope, but like that's I don't know that I can accept that. That's your list, but the Miz is interesting because he didn't really do anything. But then if like a gimmick wrestler comes in, celebrity, look, I give him credit. He accepts what it is. Can't believe none of us said Ric Flair. I interviewed Ric Flair on 790 once, and the dude
Well,
was
I was gonna
fucking
say this, but you cut me
hammered.
off.
Oh, you're right. You still have 4 others. My bad. I'm
No, say
sorry.
what?
I filibustered. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But yeah, Ric Flair's got to be top five, and I also like Randy Orton. He's one of my
Oh,
favorites.
fuck, dude. I forgot, dude. So
Nice.
Randy
That's
Orton's a
nice.
St. Louis guy, and he in the building I worked at here, would work out at a gym right next door. So you knew if there was like this Bentley parked in the parking lot that it was Randy Orton. And like I would just watch him walk out of this fucking gym, and this dude was just yoked. And I forgot about Randy Orton. Currently, out of all the current wrestlers, Randy Orton is actually my favorite current wrestler. I think Randy Orton fucks. He's believable. His character is good. That's important, man. Like the character's got to be believable, right? And I think Randy Orton's a great character. So I forgot about him. I will put him in my top 5 because he's my favorite of the current wrestlers.
Well, before we let you go,
You didn't finish your list.
Well, yeah,
I interrupted twice. I'll do it 3 more times before it's over.
We got The Miz, The Rock, Randy Orton, Stone Cold, and the Undertaker.
But no Flair.
But Flair, you can switch an Undertaker and Flair on mine.
Okay, the Flair isn't on mine either. But like a lot of people, it's wild because this dude should have been dead 8 times.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
truly fascinating. Like, but here he is. He's like cockroaches. He
That
just
30 for
keeps living.
30, that 30 for 30 they did on him was like, dude, how,
Well, what I
how
love is so the dude's in the hospital. He comes out of this coma or whatever, and the first thing he asks for is a beer. And he's like, listen, I'm not going to stop drinking. I enjoy drinking. I respect the shit out of that. Dude's like, you know what? I enjoy this. I've lived this fucking life. I'm not going to sit here and live the last, the back 9 of it or the last 3 holes of my life, not drinking and having fun. Apparently, he's just a DJ that hangs out at bars like in like, does he live in Tampa maybe? Wherever he lives in Florida, he just hangs out at bars and shit and just gets hammered and hits on chicks.
him
Still.
and Josh Reddick are pretty good friends. They
Oh yeah, totally. That was the
yeah.
whole gimmick. When we had him on, he was talking about that how he's good friends with Josh Reddick. That was of course 7 years ago, so I have no idea what their relationship is now. But that was during the World Series, the first World Series run. That was like a big deal.
Yeah. Well, me and Crenshaw, we're foodies. We love food. Um, we need you to end the debate. You've been everywhere. You've been to Nashville, St. Louis. Who has
The
what is
answer is
your
Texas.
top 3 barbecue?
Texas,
Texas
the
number one.
state. No, but look, I'll tell you this: there's really no good barbecue places in St. Louis, but in Kansas City, I haven't been to enough of them. Like I've been to the one that's in the gas station in Kansas City. Okay, that's pretty good. But I think Kansas City barbecue is overrated. Here's what's important, right? You gotta go. It's brisket, and where is brisket the king? Brisket is the king in Texas, right? I've been getting into some more I say exotic shit, but like I started trying to smoke meat. I got a Traeger. I'm a poon. Like I can't go out and like light a fire, but I got a Traeger. It's like an oven, but I've got one. And like there's this dude and I follow him on Instagram. His name is Les. It's like Les Barbecue or something. He's in Houston. He's a Houston dude. And this
Oh
motherfucker will
yeah.
make oxtails that are they're like softballs. Okay.
Hmm.
Oxtails. And these things look incredible. So I went to like the World Market over here where they sell oxtails, and I tried to make them myself. They were not nearly as good as his looked. But like I like that kind of shit too. So like oxtails. ND used to tell me about that. He'd be like, "You want to go eat oxtails?" He's Nigerian or whatever. So he's like, we would like he eats oxtails. I'm like, that sounds nasty. What the fuck is that? Now I fucking love this shit. So, but but Texas has the best barbecue. They have the best ribs. Although I will say this: that the ribs in Memphis is a good barbecue town. Nashville, not a great barbecue town. Although there's a guy that has a place in Nashville. His name is Shotgun Willie, and he is from Houston. So he's an Oilers guy growing up. He's from Houston. So that's how I met him up in Nashville. His is the best barbecue in Nashville. But I think Memphis has great barbecue, great ribs, dry rub type ribs in Memphis at the Rendezvous there in downtown are great. In Houston, Truth Barbecue is great. You used to have to drive out to Brenham to get Truth Barbecue. Now it's right down there in the city. You got that. You got Pinkerton's Grant Pinkerton's barbecue. They're really good. Corkscrew barbecue. Those are some of like the big name ones there. But the best part about Houston, dude, and this is what makes it so great, is you can find barbecue in any kind of hole in the wall. It doesn't matter if it's white dudes, black dudes. There's an Asian bar. There's these Asian dudes doing barbecue out of like an old gas station that I saw a video about. And it's like a fusion of like Asian barbecue, like rice and shit. And it looked fucking amazing, man. Like Houston is such a good town, food town, people town. It's just a great fucking place, man. It's kind of overpopulated at this point now. When I lived there, it was already getting there. Now it feels like it's like you can't even move in Houston anymore. But like food, people, vibes, it's hot as shit. But I grew up in Baton Rouge. What the fuck do I care? I lived in that shit, so I get it. But just a great place and food and fuck, man. Now I want it. Now I want to go back down to Houston and eat barbecue. But then you got like other options, like you go to BB's. You know, you go down to BB's, get crawfish, or their Jazzy Shrimp Trio is one of my favorite things at BB's. You know, shit. I mean, they got it all, man. It's truly. Rich Lord used to say, he'd say, Josh, you know, I think Houston's a world-class food city. And I'd say, what the fuck are you talking about, Rich? Whatever. And then, like, it is. Like, there's so many different kinds of stuff you can get, you know, and it's great for that. But I don't think, I didn't find barbecue in Missouri to be very good. I think Kansas City's overrated. Texas is
I agree with you.
spectacular, you know, so you
Yeah,
live there in Kansas City, so you know. It's too, like, I think their barbecue is too sweet. Like, I
it
like the
relies
burnt
on the
ends,
sauce too
but
much.
it's very sweet, you know.
It relies on the sauce too much. Like my barbecue, you can't. Sauce is good, but when you put too much on it, it ruins it for me.
Do you see that salt and pepper is the base of it, and like
A
the
little bit of
ribs, like the
paprika, but
brisket? They don't do that here though. Here it's way too sauce driven and too sweet in a lot of instances. So, but I'll tell you a good thing that does come out of here that a lot of people don't know about: pork steaks. A pork steak is like the cheapest cut of thing. Basically, it all comes from a big pork butt and you slice it into steaks. I used to eat them when I was a kid, and it's the cheapest. You can go buy 10 of these things for like $5, and you throw them on the grill, baste them up. Fantastic. That's a good delicacy, of mostly a St. Louis delicacy, but those are really good and cheap. So that's one. And I don't even know. I like, you tell that to Houston people, they're like, "What the fuck's a pork steak?" You know, but they're phenomenal.
yeah, we eat them all the time. Well, Josh, man, it was great having you on. We know your wife's probably trying to enjoy some wrestling right now, so we want to interrupt too
No, she's
much.
probably just making some sort of bets on a basketball game right now. She's a degenerate too. So
Well,
I've polluted her mind.
thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell everybody what you got cooking and where we can find you on social media? That way we can support you.
You can follow me everywhere. It's just Josh Ennis Show, INNES. You can give me a follow on. I'm mostly on Instagram and on Twitter, but Twitter can be quite a toxic place, as you guys know. So, but I'm on there some. You know, look, I say it's I talk shit on there too. We're all fucking monsters in some way. But so I got that. I'm on there and I'm on Instagram, which is mostly just me posting pictures of my dog. So.
All right. Well, again, Josh, thanks for coming. We're going to have to do this again sometime. It's been a blast.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. This was fun. You guys kick ass.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks,
bro.
guys. Be good.
You too, Josh.
All right. Well, fellas, like the wise words of Crenshaw, worst part of the show because that's the end. I'll start with you, Crenshaw. Tell us where we can find you, what you got cooking. That way we can support you.
Find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw everywhere. I ain't got nothing cooking, but it's still going down.
Still going down. What about you, Mr. Keno the Messenger?
Yes, sir. Y'all can follow me on YouTube at Here Can Out, and also Twitter, Here Can Out, and continue to support us, man. The Texas Fan Better podcast, and y'all continue to check out the video if you haven't. The Swarm video, you know what I'm saying? Stream the song, and yes, sir.
All right, all right. And what about you, Mr. Batterpool? Where we find you at, brother?
Find me on Twitter/X at Texas TTV. Same thing on TikTok, Texas TTV. And we also got the Instagram going finally. Same at Texas TTV. We're gonna have some content and stuff. Stuff we have on here, we'll start posting on the Instagram page. So be on the lookout for that. Appreciate all the love from everybody.
Yes, sir. And then we got our brother Honcho still at work, so he couldn't make it. You can find him at H-Town Honcho 713. Follow myself at A1 Day One Texans. And of course, like the fellow said, support the page. Texans fan battles everywhere. Next month in April, we're going to start our new segments that we've been talking about. They're going to be great because we make them. So make sure you check it out. Until then, have a blessed week, and we'll see you next week. Pat, stay on until we kick it off. Y'all guys have a good night. We'll talk to you later.
I'ma calm down. Won't chop it up. There's an H-Town anthem, so we gotta slow it up.
This the best podcast known to man. We been raw. You heard it here first from Keno and Fifth Ward Crenshaw.